Investigations Hawaii, from the case files of Harry Wong, Paranormal Investigator. Short Scares Number 1, The Faceless Woman of Waialae Drive-In. The start of a new month always made me a little bit sad. Not just because sometimes I didn't have enough cash for the rent and had to sell some of my Star Wars toys, collectibles, in order to pay it on time. It was also when I regularly took my mother to visit her older sister, my Aunt Adele, at the Palolo Chinese nursing home. Auntie Adele was 82 years old, 2 years older than my mother, and had been a patient at the home for what must have been around 50 years. The cause of her illness was officially reported as an accident at the time. But as a paranormal investigator, I knew the truth was not always what it seemed. The year was 1965, and everyone wanted to see The Sound of Music. My mother was no exception. It played as a double feature with Mary Poppins. Oh, that was one Julie Andrews overload. Anyway, it played at the old Waialae Drive-In Theater near the Kahala neighborhood of Honolulu. So she made plans to watch it with the boy she was dating at the time. She also said she was planning to enjoy the submarine races with him, but her mother, my Popo, insisted they bring my Auntie Adele along as a chaperone because Popo didn't want them racing submarines. This confused the heck out of me since there were no submarine rides open to the public at that time. Anyways, after Mary Poppins finished and their credits started to roll, my mother and Auntie Adele went to the restroom together as girls have been doing since cavewomen times, when, I suppose, they searched together for the right rock or bush to do their business. They entered the ladies' room and saw a woman standing at the sink. She wore what looked like a long white silk robe or kimono that reached the ground and covered her whole body, except for her head, from which flowed long, luxurious black hair, which she brushed continuously with an almost mechanical motion. The clothing was a bit old-fashioned and unusual, but otherwise, they didn't think much of it. After all, it wasn't called the powder room for nothing. They finished their business and were about to leave when my mother happened to glance back at the woman who was still brushing her hair at the sink. My mother caught the mirror at just the right angle and saw something she thought must have been a mistake. In the low light of the dank and grimy restroom, the woman appeared to have no face. My mother stopped in her tracks and stared at the mirror intently, sure that it was a trick of the low lighting that blocked out the woman's face. Then, as if the woman could sense my mother staring at her, she turned around slowly to reveal that her face was gone. Instead of eyes, nose, and a mouth, there was only a mass of skin which stretched to cover her whole face. But that wasn't the worst of it. Under her face, something moved. It was as if worms were trapped inside her flesh. The skin bulged in and out as the worms crawled back and forth beneath her skin. My mother tried to scream, but nothing came out. She watched as the woman then floated upward and her robe fell open, revealing that the woman had no legs. The faceless woman floated towards my mother with outstretched arms, and even though the woman didn't have a mouth, my mother could distinctly hear words coming out of the woman which sounded like, "My baby, my baby," repeated over and over again as she floated closer and closer until she was within arm's reach of my mother. That's when my Auntie Adele pushed my mother out of the restroom, but before she could follow, the door slammed shut, trapping her inside with the faceless woman. My mother pulled and pulled at the door from the outside, but it would not open as she heard my Auntie Adele screaming over and over. But no matter how hard my mother pulled at the door, it would not budge. Desperate, my mother ran to get her boyfriend who, along with several others who heard the commotion, all ran to help. When they reached the restroom, the door was wide open. They found Auntie Adele all alone, lying on the ground with her eyes open in a catatonic state, her hair turned completely white as if she were frozen in fear. She has remained in this condition up until today. We visit her every month, hoping for improvement, but nothing has changed in 50 years. Maybe next month it'll be different, but I doubt it. You have been listening to Paranormal Investigations Hawaii from the case files of Harry Wong, Paranormal Investigator, a fictional podcast.